Welcome to another Soccer Down Here 1v1. John Nelson here with you. This time around, we catch up with a soccer legend transforming the beautiful game, the Clyde Best Story. It's coming to Atlanta for a two-night screening event, July 13th and 14th, Monday and Tuesday, at the Loudermilk Center, downtown Atlanta on Cortlandt Street in the Sweet Auburn district. And it is part of Atlanta's BronzeLens Film Festival. The event's also going to be in partnership with Soccer on the Streets, and it celebrates the life and legacy of Bermudian soccer legend Clyde Best, the first black soccer superstar of the modern TV era in England. And his career helped break racial barriers in a global sport, shaping the early growth of professional soccer in the United States as well, with his time indoors and starting off in the mid-'70s in the North American Soccer League. The film gets to revisit Easter Sunday of 1972. Best, Clive Charles, and Eddie Coker become the first black trio to start a match in England's first division. Milestones like that transcend sport, and what it was like for Clyde Best to navigate the 1960s and the 1970s in both England as a professional athlete and in the United States as a professional athlete. Also helps chronicle his role in American soccer in the North American Soccer League, helping the Rowdies capture the 1975 Soccer Bowl, going on to Portland and leaving an imprint on the field and off. And we get to explore that with him here in this conversation that we have as a Soccer Down Here 1v1. Once again, the Loudermilk Center, Monday night, Tuesday night, as a part of the BronzeLens Film Festival here in Atlanta. And here's our 1v1 on the man at the focus in the center of transforming the beautiful game, Clyde Best. My first question for you, sir, is when someone knocked on your door, sent you an email, wanted to break bread, and they said, hey, we want to do this documentary on you, what was your initial reaction?
Well, it quite went a little bit different. The guy that is the director of the documentary, he went to school with a nephew of mine. So that's how we got to do this sort of stuff. And, so far it's been, a good ride,
When you think back to the beginnings of this, and they've, he's pieced it together and he's laid out the whole thing. When you saw the finished product for the first time, what was your initial reaction?
I was very happy with it the first time. And as I said, up until now, we haven't had one person come and say, this is not good enough, this is bad. Nobody, done anything like that. So it's been pretty successful as far as that goes. So I'm happy with that,
Have you thought of yourself at any point, whether it was at West Ham or when you came over to the North American Soccer League and then you played indoors, have you ever thought of yourself as a role model in all of this, considering everything that you had to go through from off the field while you were trying to do your job on the field?
Well, not, in the beginning, the more you think about it and the more you see things, that's where it becomes more in line with what you're, asking me. As I said, my responsibility from the time I left Bermuda was to go and do a good job and make it possible for people coming after me that they can have the same opportunity. And if you look at football today, that's what's happening, especially in England.
How much of a culture shock was it for you initially when you go over from Somerset to your time at West Ham? How much was that initial culture shock for you?
It wasn't so much a culture shock. It was more trying to get in line with the way things were done in England compared to where I had just come from. Amateur and professional, it's a big difference, and going from an amateur in Bermuda to a place like West Ham, especially when England had just finished winning the World Cup, that was a big thing.
And how much pressure did you put on yourself Because I know that it doesn't matter what field you're in. There's always that pressure of self-expectation in addition to the expectation from everyone that brings you into a situation.
Well,
How much?
for me, you know, I knew my ability. I knew what I could do and couldn't do. Excuse. So it wasn't any extra pressure or anything on me, because the type of human being I am, you mustn't let things get you down. You got a job to do. You just go out and do it to the best of your ability.
Then, with everything going on, in the United States in the 1960s when it came to the civil rights movement and responses from certain sections of society, what was it like for those of us that weren't there? What was the parallel like in the late 60s and early 70s in England when you were there at West Ham? How much of a parallel was it, or was it just a different universe entirely when it came to acceptance and tolerance?
It was a similar thing. Racism is racism. If you're going to be disrespectful to people that are playing sport, I'm sure the same things happen here in those days as well as happening in England. So you as an individual, you got to be mentally tough not to let that tear you down because you have a job to do. You got people out there paying big money to watch you perform. So you have to perform to the best of your ability and not let things like that there get you down.
How hard was that?
For me, it wasn't hard because mentally, I knew I had a job to do. My dad always told me when I left Bermuda, you're not playing for yourself. You're playing for those coming after you. Now, when I look and see the boys of color playing football in England, it makes me feel very, very proud. And as you go into the documentary, you see a lot of the players, even now, thanking me for being the first one to go through the gauntlet to make it easier for them.
Because it takes a very special individual, and I've done stories in American college football about those first evers going into college campuses in the southeastern United States,
Right.
and to be the first ever full scholarship athlete at a Southern university, and
Right.
to be that individual, to be the first one to set it up for everyone else. It takes someone with a very, very special constitution, mentally and emotionally, to understand that there's going to be all of this external noise coming at you. And the word I will use is crude. It's going to be very, very crude at times coming at you. And to persevere through that, I would imagine it takes a very special individual to do that. So when you had to navigate through it, did you ever have those ebbs and flows, or was it just normally just straight on? I know what I'm dealing with here, and you were level headed the entire time.
Straight on. I know what I'm dealing with. You got to be physically and mentally tough. Remember, as I told you in the beginning, I had to think of people coming after me and playing for that sort of stuff. Because, as I said, in those days, there wasn't many black players playing on the football field in England. So myself, John Charles, Clyde Charles, Eddie Coker, were probably four of the first black ones to make it at that level. And we knew going into it that it wasn't going to be easy. But like I said, you got to be mentally tough. You got to be willing to fight and not let people deter you from what you want to achieve.
Did the four of you, for lack of a better phrase, share notes? Did you have conversations amongst yourselves about comparing how you were trying to handle the situation and how to best handle the situation and still be the best athlete that you could be?
Well, first of all, Clive and John were brothers. They were brothers that played at West Ham that I joined when I went there. Okay. John was the first person of color to play for England at under 18 level. You look today, we've got many boys of color representing England. And it's because of what we done in the early days to get them where they are now. If we would have reacted in the wrong way, do you think we would have been having those many kids out there playing now? I don't think so, because the first thing you're going to say, hey, we don't want them guys out there. They don't know how to behave themselves. They didn't know how to carry themselves. But that wasn't the problem for us, because when you got into John and Clive's family, you understood their mom. She was a small little white lady that had married a black man in the 50s and 60s. So you can imagine what she had to go through. And she brought us up to respect, treat people the way you want to be treated, and be kind and nice to people. And that's the way we were brought up. And that's the way we went about our job. And that's why it never really affected us, because we were mentally tough.
Then you come over to the North American Soccer League, and then there's the cup of coffee at Feyenoord, and then you played in the indoor game. How different an experience was it in the mid-'70s coming back to the United States from what you were experiencing in the late 60s and early 70s at West Ham?
Well, it was great coming to North America for the first time, because we were coming to help develop a new sport, so to speak. You know, though they were playing back in the day in the early 60s and days, and we just came in to help cushion and get the game moving in the right direction. Um, I think Phil Woosnam was the commissioner at that time. And for me coming over to America, I know he had something to do with it, just like he did when it was time to get a trial for West Ham. Him being a former player and knowing Ron Greenwood, you know, he told Ron about me, and we knew how to carry ourselves and knew how to behave ourselves because of the upbringing. In life, lots of times, your behavior is based on the way you're brought up in the house. You know, if you don't have that correct upbringing, sometimes you find it difficult and make things a lot harder for yourself.
How far have we come since, I'll deal with it here in the United States, the last 50 years? How far have we come when it comes to acceptance, tolerance, whether you're looking at it from an athletic prism or just a 1v1 relationship? And how much more do you think we have to work on?
No, we still got a lot of work to do. I mean, you look at the world in general today and what's going on. You know, that tells me that we have big, big problems. I mean, when I look at a country that is going to war today and people are fighting and killing one another, you got little babies starving, not got drinking water. What does that tell you? We're in a bad situation. So it's up to us as grown-ups and adults is to make sure these things are done properly, where we don't have little children we've seen on television that are suffering and struggling, because this day and age, it shouldn't be like that. It's not as if we can't afford people that have drinking water. We can. But it means a commitment and people working together for the same cause. Because at the end of the day, we're all going to go out the same way in a sense. We're going to die. You know, so you want to leave, as you said, leave a mark where people are going to remember the contribution you have made to your country, your world, your neighborhood, whatever. You know, and those are the things that I try to implement, especially to young people today, because that's what life is all about. You know, there's no sense having all the money in the world if you're not willing to help and share with people that don't have.
When you have conversations with young people today and you get to tell them your story, both athletically and off the field when it comes to perseverance and lessons and such, what is their first response other than, you know, I didn't know this, but what is their first responses when you get to tell them your story?
Well, when I tell my story to a lot of children, very few of them would say anything bad about what I'm doing or trying to do. Most of them sit and listen and pay attention. Because as I tell young people every day, at the end of the day, education is the key to success. If you don't have a good education, it's going to be difficult in life. You can play football all you want, but still you got to have common sense and education, because someone can come, if you don't know about your contract or don't have anyone representing you about your contract, all the money that you made could be going to waste. So you must learn to listen, get in line with the right people, pay attention, and remember, we don't know it all. Surround yourself with people that know so that you're going to be okay. What I try and tell children, young boys especially today, football is for part of your life. Education is for your entire life. So make sure you get a good education.
How can today's modern day athlete and how can sport today help in that as a driver of change and a reminder of how we need to change?
Well, we just got to continue to persevere and don't stop speaking about it. Everybody at times might not agree with you, but if you think you're right and you got a good idea, push your narrative to go and do what is right. And as I said, you look worldwide right now, young men are having problems. All over the world, young men are having problems. So we have to find a way to get to these young men to make them understand you have a part to play in society as well. But you got to do the right thing, do it the right way. You can't be involved doing bad things. You got to be doing good things. And that's what I want the young people to understand, that you can do it too. Never let no one tell you that you can't do. You can do whatever you want once you use common sense and make sure you have a good education.
Transforming the beautiful game, the Clyde Best Story. First off, thanks to Mr. Best for spending a lot of his super valuable time with us, and for Corinne Delage at Charisma Agency for helping us out in securing the interview and the time in Mr. Best's very, very busy schedule. So it's Transforming the Beautiful Game, the Clyde Best Story, part of the Atlanta BronzeLens Film Festival at the Loudermilk Center. And if you want to plug that into your GPS, July 13th, Monday, July 14th, Tuesday, and it is at 40 Cortlandt Street in the heart of downtown, over by the GSU campus, as the GSU campus has been expanding over the last couple of years. 40 Cortlandt Street Northeast, Atlanta 30303. That's the GPS to plug in to get to the Loudermilk Conference Center and see this tremendous work that has been pieced together on Clyde Best and his place in not just the soccer landscape in both England and the United States, but honestly, the landscape off it as well in navigating the 1960s and the 1970s. So once again, you can go to ClydeBest.com for more info. Go to the Loudermilk Center and check out the documentary in and of itself. It's even got its own IMDb entry. BronzeLens Film Festival here in Atlanta, and it is at the Loudermilk Center right off of the GSU campus, 40 Cortlandt Street in downtown. Once again, thanks to the Charisma Agency, and thanks to Mr. Best for letting us spend some time in his hyper-busy schedule where you get the film screenings, conversations, guest appearance, panel discussions, and even some giveaways, too, if you want to go and visit the Loudermilk Conference Center and take part in taking a look at transforming the beautiful game, the Clyde Best Story. That is another Soccer Down Here 1v1. Mucha Platiel, play it safe. Enjoy the beautiful game as we do every single day here on SDA.